Speculation has it that this would be one of the most interesting drafts in decades. Well, a couple of blockbuster trades have happened to make the draft even wilder now. Philadelphia no longer has the first pick. The 76ers traded it to Cleveland for Roy, Hinson, and Cash. The Sixers then followed up by trading Moses Malone, Catlett, and their 21st pick this year to Washington for Jeff Ruland, Cliff Robinson, and the Bullets' lesser of their first-round 2 picks in 1988. So that's going to really change things up at the top of the draft this year. Working with me again this year, the head coach at Georgetown University and the newly selected coach of the 1988 Olympics, U.S. Mount, Cleveland. And will they pick Daugherty? What will happen now that Cleveland has made that trade with Philly?
I don't know who they'll pick, but if I was Cleveland, I'd really be worried about breaking up the chemistry of that team they have.
We'll take a look at it in just a moment to see what Cleveland does. Also joining us on our telecast is the editor and publisher of the Basketball Times and also president of the Basketball Writers Association, Larry Donald. Larry, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
How about explaining to us in a nutshell what that Philly-Washington trade could be?
Well, I think one thing for certain, Bob, that program sales are going to be brisk next year in the Spectrum. I think that obviously the key to it is that they're gambling that Ruland can get through the season injury-free, which he has not done, I would point out, in the last couple of years. Or maybe they think they can play 3 power forwards together, or just maybe there's another trade to come.
Could very well be. We'll be keeping our eyes and ears open on that. Also keeping his eyes and ears open and talking to some of these players. Matter of fact, 12 and maybe even more of the top draft choices are here in New York today. And talking to them and other people at the Felt Forum will be our colleague at TBS Sports and former NBA All-Star Rick Barry.
That's exactly right, Bob, and we'll be talking to those young men later on in the draft. But right now with me is Marty Blake, the director of NBA scouting and the resident guru. And now with that change in that first draft pick, Marty, Cleveland taking over for Philadelphia makes things interesting. I'm going to put you on the spot. Your choices for the top 5 picks in the proper order.
I don't think there's going to be any change in the first picks. Brad Daugherty of North Carolina will go to Cleveland. They've indicated they want to rebuild, and he's a good pick. Red Auerbach may change things around. Logic indicates he will take Bedford of Memphis State, William Bedford, the center. But Red has always had an affinity for Lenny Bias, who he's known for a long time. I think George Karl at Golden State will definitely take Chris Washburn of North Carolina State. And if Bedford drifts to Indiana, they have a problem. Let's put Bedford in there and put Chuck Person for the New York Knickerbockers.
All right, thank you very much, Marty. We're going to see whether or not you were correct in your evaluations there. But right now, let's go down to the main floor and all the action with John Andres.
Okay, Rick Barry, thank you very much. I'm standing here with the gentleman who really unleashed a very major surprise here. It's the co-owners of the Cleveland Cavaliers, George and Gordon Gund, made a very big move. Now they have the number 1 pick, and of course they have the number 8 pick. And you gentlemen don't have yet, or you have not yet, appointed a general manager or a coach. Who's making the calls here?
Well, go ahead, George. We have a group of people, the scouts and people involved with the team that have made a cumulative decision. We've gotten a lot of input and put it all together and tried to make a move to get things going in Cleveland.
Gordon, you have to be very happy about this pick now. You have the number 1. Do you want to tell us what you're thinking?
Well, we're thinking there's some awfully good players out there, John, and if you wait a couple of minutes, you'll know exactly what we're thinking.
Now, Roy Hinson, to make that decision, had to be based on something that happened with John Williams yesterday in the courts. He can now play for the Cavaliers next year, right?
That certainly helped it.
George?
That had some effect, definitely.
That helped it. We like Roy and like him tremendously.
I think he'll do well in Philadelphia, but with Williams becoming available, it changed things. So.
Okay, George and Gordon Gund, co-owners of the Cavaliers. Now let's go up to Paul Ryden with Red Auerbach in Boston.
We're at the Blades and Boards in Boston with Celtics president Red Auerbach. And Red, a surprising turn of events this morning in Philadelphia. What's your reaction to all that?
Well, you know, this is the first draft where I'm smiling before the draft because I really don't care what's going to happen. But the turn of events in Philadelphia, it may help both clubs. But then again, they may have a problem of chemistry, playing time, and so forth. So I'm not totally convinced that that is a good move for either team.
I don't suppose you wanted to help Philadelphia too much, though.
No way.
Spoken like a true Eastern Conference champion. Thanks, Red. Be sure to stay with us now throughout the first round. Red will be here with all his comments on the draft. Right now, let's go to Atlanta, where Kevin Christopher is standing by at Hawks headquarters.
All right, Paul, thank you. Welcome to the War Room here at Atlanta's Omni, if you will. With me, Hawks head coach Mike Fratello. Mike, we've heard from Red Auerbach your comments about the deals that have been made so far.
I think any trade, you need to give it time. You have to get into the season, see what it does to the chemistry of both teams, see how they interact with each other on the floor, and give the chance for both teams to gel, work together. I think it's interesting because now Cleveland has 1-8. It'll create excitement in that town.
Is Brad Daugherty still a lock at number 1?
I think he has to be.
All right. We'll keep you posted on the strategy here from Atlanta. Now let's go back to New York and Bob Neal.
Well, the NBA draft is going to be even more interesting. Who will Cleveland take? Daugherty, Bedford, Bias, Washburn. There you see on that board where all... Before we go to the podium and NBA Commissioner David Stern with the announcement of the first pick, let's have a look at the order of selection here in 1986. Cleveland, that's the news from the trade. Followed by Boston, Golden State, Indiana, New York, and Phoenix. The top 8, by the way, were in this year's lottery, Dallas and Cleveland. Then the rest are in inverse ratio to their records. Chicago, San Antonio, Detroit from Sacramento, followed by Washington. There are 24 picks, thanks to Cleveland getting an extra one a couple of years ago. They were given that from the NBA. Then it'll be New Jersey, Portland, Utah, Denver from Dallas, Sacramento, Atlanta, Houston, Washington, Milwaukee, LA Lakers, and the 24th pick of 1986 from Boston will go to the Portland Trail Blazers. So now let's go to the podium and the commissioner of the NBA, David Stern, and get started with the draft for 1986.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 1986 NBA Draft. Each year, multi-talented young players enter our league through our draft, and those who go on to make their teams join the most select group of athletes in the world, the players of the NBA. Today's draftees will surely add new dimensions to our game, and that's what keeps NBA basketball so dynamic and exciting. Our teams have already been fully briefed, but for our fans here at Felt Forum in New York City, for those in attendance at team draft headquarters across the country, and for our national television audience on Superstation WTBS, I would just note the following. First, the draft will consist of 7 rounds. In the first round, each team has 5 minutes to make a selection. In rounds 2nd through 5th, the selections must be made in 2 minutes. And in rounds 6 and 7, there's a 1-minute time limit. Everyone is anxious to get started, so let's do it. The first selection in the 1986 NBA Draft will be made by the Cleveland Cavaliers.
You see Cleveland there, and they'll be taking a runner. Will be taking the selection from Cleveland to David Stern. First of all, it goes to Marty Blake to certify the eligibility of the youngster. Blake, the director of scouting for the NBA. Then Blake will hand that selection to David Stern, and David Stern will read it. Cleveland did not know a couple of weeks ago that they would be in this position. So they're making a decision. As you saw, there are some of the players and their families. On the left of your screen there is Chuck Person and his bride Kimberly. They were married this past week. There is Daugherty right in the middle. Johnny Dawkins just to his right. And we'll be seeing some of the other players. And there goes the runner with the selection. I believe that's the runner. Yes, it is. He has it in his left hand. He will take it to Marty Blake, unless Marty's already looked at it, and then it'll go to David Stern, and David Stern will announce the number 1 selection of the 1986 NBA Draft. There's Marty Blake behind the typewriter. He's the director of scouting. He will just certify the eligibility of the player. Of course, they've all been checked out previously. That is whether he met all the criteria set by the National Basketball Association. And once that is done, Marty Blake, the man with glasses in the center, checked out by Matt Winnick of the NBA also, who puts his initials on it. And soon we'll find out. All right, here we go. And now David Stern is going to announce the number 1 selection. Will it be Daugherty, Bedford, Bias, Washburn, or even a bigger surprise? We'll find out in just a moment. Here it is.
For the first pick in the 1986 NBA Draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Brad Daugherty of the University of North Carolina.
Brad Daugherty, the number 1 selection. He has no family here with him today, and most people thought he might be the number 1 pick when Philadelphia had it, John Thompson.
I think that most people, Bob, were saying that Brad was the safe pick, and I think just basically from the fact that, you know, he's a young man who's done the things that he's supposed to do in college. He's also a person who I think can play power forward or center. He's got age on his side. Now, I think that definitely that's an outstanding choice because you know what you're getting when you get Brad Daugherty, I feel.
Brad Daugherty will not turn 21 until October 19th. As you look at the owners, the co-owners, the Gunn brothers of Cleveland, give him his jersey. He'll be 55. Number 55, Brad Daugherty. Let's go now to Rick Barry, and he's going to be talking to the #1 selection in 1986, Brad Daugherty.
Brad, what does being the #1 pick in this draft mean to you?
Well, it's a childhood dream of mine, always to fulfill a professional sport, and coming through college, it's always something that sticks in the back of your mind to be the #1 pick in any sport that you're trying to ascertain a goal in, and it's very much a pleasure for me.
How surprised are you about all of a sudden Cleveland being the team you're going to? I'm sure you thought it was going to be Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, I tried to prepare myself to not be, surprised or anything like that. I didn't want to really expect anything. I just said, Brad, wait until the day, and whatever happens is going to happen. And I just kind of put all that in the back of my mind so I wouldn't be too surprised.
All right, a lot of people, your critics, have said that you play soft. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, there's no response to it. I don't understand what the word soft means. I just try to play hard and have fun and stay in the game as much as possible. And I guess I'll just have to wait and see.
All right, now there's talk about you're playing either center or powered forward. Your feelings as to where you might like to perform?
Either position is comfortable for me. My game was established facing the basket, but here as of late I've learned to play my back to the basket a little bit more, and I have a good feel for it. So either way is fine with me.
Well, congratulations to you on being the #1 pick in this 1986 draft. And right now, let's go down to John Andres on the floor.
Let's see if we can beat the Boston Celtics to their next pick now. This man has 8 championship rings as a member of the Boston Celtics. Tom "Sat" Sanders, a native New Yorker. Let's make you Larry Bird right now. Who do you want next to you next year, Bias or Bedford?
Well, it's a funny thing. After looking at that series and assuming that the players have gained a year of experience and certainly a year of age, I'd venture to say they ought to look for a strong forward.
They want to win championships now and next year or the year after, right? They don't want to think 8 years ahead?
Well, let's be serious. The Celtics are known to be greedy, and they've won one. Now it's next to get the other one in a row, and continuously. Why stop now?
Takes a greedy man to know them, right? What do you think Red Auerbach is nervous about his next pick?
Red, at this stage in the game, I'd venture to say not. I'm sure he's enjoying every single moment. Between he, Casey, and Jan Vogt, they're having a lot of fun. But I think they'll go with a strong forward.
Tom Sanders, what are you doing now with your life?
I'm working with Northeastern University, Center for the Study of Sport and Society, and that's a program geared to the improvement of the athletic scene, amateurs and pros, and Olympic players, and et cetera.
Okay, Tom "Sat" Sanders, a credit to the game of basketball. Nice to have you with us. Let's go back now to Bob Neal.
Thank you, John. The teams have 5 minutes in the first round between picks. We have a clock just over my left shoulder up here, and there's a minute and a half left before Boston has to make a selection, even though they can make it earlier. So we have about a minute and a half before we'll learn. John Thompson, most people seem to think that Red Auerbach will take Bedford or Bias. You're a former Celtics yourself. Do you have any feeling about who would be best on the team?
Well, I don't know who would be best, but I think that all the signals have come out that they're going to take Len Bias. And knowing Red Auerbach, I think that he is not one to expose his feelings to people, and I would not be surprised at all if he took Bedford. I just have that in the back of my mind, and I don't think that he will be hurt by anybody that he selects, but I'm very, very suspicious when Auerbach exposes himself to people, because that's not consistent with his success over the years.
Okay, I understand now that David Stern has learned of the selection from Boston, so let's go back to our podium for the #2 pick in the first round of the 86 draft, and here's the commissioner, David Stern.
The Boston Celtics select Len Bias of the University of Maryland.
There he is, Len Bias. Len was sitting by his mother. She is here with him. Len Bias, who had a great career at Maryland. Many people think he may be the best athlete in the draft. And Larry Donald, how would you position that with Len Bias?
Well, he certainly has to be about the happiest man. He goes from a Maryland team which struggled and had to rally to get into the NCAA tournament, and now he's going to the world champion. So he's a great talent. I think that probably the only thing that stood between him and being the #1 pick today was about 3 inches that he forgot to grow.
The Golden State Warriors select Chris Washburn of North Carolina State.
There's the Washburn family you saw there with him. Had a large group come with him. As a matter of fact, 12 family members are here with Chris Washburn. Chris Washburn, a controversial player, As you know, he had some scrapes with the law and some controversy at North Carolina State. He had told Coach Jim Valvano that he was going to stay at NC State, then had his mom call the coach to say that he had decided to go out in the early eligibility draft. Chris Washburn, no question about it, is a very talented player. Okay, let's go to Rick Barry now. We're going to talk to this young man who's in the spotlight bigger than ever before. Chris Washburn with Rick Barry.
Chris, 1 year of college basketball. How long do you think it's going to take you to learn to adapt to playing NBA basketball?
Well, it's going to take a few years, but I think within time I'll be one of the premier players in my position.
What areas of the game do you feel you need to work on the most?
I don't really have any specific areas. I think that I need to work in all areas so my game will elevate itself.
You visited out at Golden State. What do you think about being chosen by them?
I think it's a nice area. It's just going to take me time to learn the players because being in the Western Conference, I didn't really get to see them that much on television. So I think that I will adapt very well with the team.
Good luck to you, and I can tell you one thing from first-hand experience. It's a great area to live in. Now let's go back to Bob Neal.
Okay, Larry Donald, do we have another Twin Towers situation building here, a la Houston?
Well, you remember a couple of years ago, Bob, they talked about no one could believe that Houston would draft Olajuwon when they already had Sampson because the theory was they can't play together, two big guys. Now all of a sudden there's Houston in the finals, and some of these other teams are probably chasing after them the same idea.
Indiana's coming up next in the draft, and Indiana, one of the youngest teams in the league, they had 7 first-round choices on their team last year. So let's see what Indiana does to improve themselves, and I understand that Commissioner David Stern is ready with the number 4 pick in the 1986 draft. Let's go to the podium.
The Indiana Pacers select Chuck Person of Auburn.
There is Chuck Person in his tuxedo. You see his bride to the left of your screen, Kimberly from Cherokee, Alabama. Chuck from Auburn, Alabama. A great athlete who played really well in the NCAAs this year. The New York Knicks fans who are here in the Felt Forum today desperately wanted this man to play in New York. But now Chuck Person goes to Indiana. John Thompson, your feelings about Person?
I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. I sort of thought maybe they would get better. But I tell you, that's the great excitement about this draft.
The Knicks are going to be up next. Before that selection, though, let's go to Rick Barry and Chuck Person.
Well, Chuck, congratulations on your recent marriage and congratulations on joining the NBA. You're certainly dressed for the occasion. You've been overshadowed in the last 3 years playing behind guys like Barkley. How does it feel now?
Feels great. I think this beats all the other publicity I've been getting over the years at Auburn. I'm happy to be drafted in the NBA draft.
Now you have a great outside shooting touch. How did you develop this?
Well, I learned to shoot in high school. I always had the medium arch range, and it carried over into college.
Any parts of the game that you feel you're going to have to work on to really make it as an NBA star?
I feel like I have to work on my perimeter defense, guarding the smaller guy. I feel like I can guard the smaller guy if I work hard at it.
Okay, well, good luck to you. And right now, just keep an eye on the monitor because John Andres is with someone I think you know.
Okay, Rick Barry, thank you. Yes, we're here with the new Mrs. Person, Kimberly Person, who got married Saturday. Some way to spend a honeymoon, huh?
Yes, it is.
How do you like New York so far?
I love New York. It's nice here.
Kimberly, were you hoping for any other team in Indiana, or are you happy with Indiana?
I'm happy with Indiana. It's in the NBA.
Okay, now that's very nice. Kimberly Person, the new Mrs. Person. Now let's go back to Bob Neal.
Thank you. Kimberly, as she told me when I talked to her right before the selection, she is from Cherokee, Alabama, attended Auburn University, was a high school cheerleader, but said that she didn't care. She was just happy to be. She's a new bride. She says, I'm happy to be with Chuck wherever he is. That's spoken like a true bride, John.
And this is an exciting time. It's very interesting in the hotel watching the draft choices last night. Everybody's excited. This is a great time.
Well, as you can hear, this place is going crazy because there are about 3,000 NBA basketball fans, most of whom are from New York, and they're waiting for the New York Knicks to make their selection. They will come up as the number 5 pick in the first round. And now let's go to see who the new New York Knick will be. Last year it was Ewing. Let's find out about 86. Here's David Stern.
The New York Knickerbockers select Kenny Walker of the University of Kentucky.
Speculation had it prior to this draft that it would be Walker or Person who would go to the New York Knicks, and it is in fact Kenny Walker from the University was Sidney Moncrief. Kenny plays the game like Moncrief, but he's 4 inches tall.
He plays the game hard. That's what I like about him. He plays the floor hard, and there's somewhat question about his outside shooting ability and his ball handling. But I'd rather have somebody that plays the game hard. Now, I'd love to see him beside Patrick because he plays the game hard also.
You see right over our back the first 5 picks. Let's just recap them very quickly. Brad Daugherty went first of all to Cleveland, followed by Bias to Boston, Washburn to Golden State, Person to Indiana, and now Kenny Walker has gone to the New York Knicks. Those are the first 5 picks in the 1986 NBA draft. And let's meet Kenny Walker, who's with Rick Barry.
Kenny, you're going to get a chance to play with Patrick Ewing.
Hey, I can't think of a better guy to play with. Patrick Ewing is a super ball player, and he's a super person because I've met Pat at the Olympic tryouts, and I played with him against him in the Final Four, and he's a super ball player, and I'll be glad to play with him.
Okay, they call you Skywalker. You're a very active player on the court. How did you develop your style?
Well, it's basically natural as far as my leaping ability goes. But my biggest asset is that I work hard, and I know that I will continue to work hard when I get in the NBA. I'm just very excited. Couldn't get any sleep last night wondering about the draft, and I'm finally having an opportunity to fulfill a childhood dream. I'm just very excited right now.
Well, the Big Apple's a great place to do that. You mentioned what your greatest asset is. What about weaknesses? Do you have any?
Well, I just need to brush up on the fundamentals, I think, of the sport. I think that when I get into the NBA, I think that I'll be playing out on the floor a little bit more, and so I need to do a little work on my perimeter game. But I feel real confident in my shot from 15, 18 feet. I think that I run the floor well. I think that I play great defense. But like I said, I just think I just need to brush up on the fundamentals of the game.
Hey, one word of warning. You're ready to play defense for you. Before I let you go, quickly, your Rodney Dangerfield imitation.
Gee, I tell you, I get no respect.
Well, he will in the Big Apple. Let's go back to Bob Neal.
You got to look for a whole lot of variety of talent when you go into the NBA, and Walker even has the Dangerfield impression. Well, you see Phoenix is up next. John Thompson and Larry Donald. Somebody who's knocked them up here who could have been the number 1 pick is Bedford of Memphis State. He's going to go next.
Well, from somebody like myself who doesn't know anything about the NBA, that's a tremendous surprise to me because the kid is a center, and it's very hard to get centers. And I think in this draft, as much as any center, he's a pure center. I'm not talking about somebody who can play power forward, guard. He plays the center position, and to be quite frank, I'm very surprised that someone hasn't taken him as of yet.
Okay, I understand David Stern is now ready with that Phoenix pick, so let's go to the podium and David Stern for the Phoenix pick in the 86 draft.
The Phoenix Suns select William Bedford of Memphis State.
William Bedford has been selected, and there's William Bedford. He has also a sizable contingent who've come here to New York with him, Larry Donald.
I think I'm extremely surprised that he would last this long, particularly pro basketball. There's such an emphasis on the center, and he does a lot of things.
William Bedford is now with Rick Barry, and let's go meet William Bedford.
William, you're another one of the players that people said perhaps power forward, perhaps center. What do you think?
I think center.
Why?
Well, I like to play center better, than playing a power forward position.
Now, you're going to go out to Phoenix. Have you had an opportunity to visit with them or talk to them at all? Is this a surprise for you?
No, I haven't. I hadn't been to Phoenix yet, but I hope to get there soon.
You're a great shot blocker when you were, at least in college. How did you develop that skill? What do you look for when you try to block shots?
Well, I like to block shots. That's one of my strongest points. And, I like to work on it during practice.
Dallas has the next pick. Here's NBA Commissioner David Stern.
The Dallas Mavericks select Roy Tarpley of Michigan.
Roy Tarpley has been selected by Dallas. Roy Tarpley played with that fine Michigan team, which I have to say this to be honest, Michigan had a disappointing season. They were picked number 1 by some people prior to the season. He's 6'10", 230 pounds, played at Cooley High School in Detroit before going to the University of Michigan.
I think, first of all, with Tarpley, had the draft been held last September, probably the number 1 name out of the hat would have been Roy Tarpley. Then he had the arthroscopic knee surgery and really didn't have a great senior year in terms, again, like Bedford, didn't continue that incline upward, didn't get better. So now he comes at this position, Again, more of a question mark. I think that if he plays like the Tarpley as a junior and continues to show that progress, he might be the guy that Dallas is looking for. On the other hand, you've got to be a little scared when you watched him play as a senior because he was not the same guy.
And you got a chance to see him a lot as your headquarters for Basketball Times are in Detroit, so I guess you saw him some.
Yeah, and I was really disappointed. I don't know whether it was the knee surgery and he just didn't come back. Sometimes they try to make that sound so simple. You have a little laparoscopic surgery and a couple of weeks later everything's the same. Well, I'm not sure everything was the same. Certainly it wasn't the same for Roy Tarpley, whether it was a knee, whether it was just a blah season, whether he had an agent talking to him. A lot of possibilities in basketball, but he didn't have a great senior year, no question.
So we're going to place Roy Tarpley with Dallas, but we're going to put a little asterisk in case Dallas, who got this pick, by the way, from Cleveland in an earlier deal, in place of that. So that's the 7th pick. The last number 8 pick of the picks that were determined by order of the lottery this year will go to Cleveland. Remember, Cleveland got the first pick, and they went with Brad Daugherty. Cleveland is going to get the 8th pick coming up in just a moment. So let's see if Brad Daugherty, yes, I believe he is, excuse me, Roy Tarpley is with Rick Barry. So let's go to Rick and meet Roy Tarpley from Michigan.
Well, Roy, the waiting is over. Now you're going into the NBA. What do you feel you have to work on to really become an outstanding player?
Well, I feel like I just have to improve my upper body strength and work on my hook and brush up on the jumper, and I think I'll be ready.
Well, you said that the waiting was very difficult for you, but you may be having to wait a little bit longer. There's been a lot of rumors going on about a possible trade involving you. What have you heard about it?
Well, I've been hearing a lot of talk just like you have, but wherever I go, I'll be prepared to be ready and work real hard.
Well, that's the right attitude to have. And to find more about that trade, let's go down to John Andres out on the floor about those particular rumors.
Thank you, Rick Barry. I'm standing here with one of America's best-known sports writers, basketball man, Pete Vesey from the New York Post. Pete knows everything there is about pro basketball. Is Roy Tarpley going to stay in Dallas?
Well, they could definitely use him, but the Lakers have offered James Worthy for Mark Aguirre and Tarpley, and the Lakers would throw in either Byron Scott or free agent Michael Cooper. The only reason that trade wasn't made last night, John, is that Aguirre's contract has to come down a little bit. He is willing to come down a little bit, and I think when that's worked out, that deal will go through.
Heavy stuff from Pete Vesey, the New York Post. Now let's go back to Bob Neal.
Okay, so we're about to go to the number 8 pick in the draft, the last of the lottery selections for 1986, and it's Cleveland. Cleveland, to recap, in case you're joining us late this afternoon, we're covering this 1986 draft live here from the Felt Forum in New York. It's Bob Neal along with John Thompson and Larry Donald, and Cleveland pulled a trade with Philadelphia for the number 1 pick, and they had the number 1 pick, and they picked Brad Daugherty, and they're about to select now the 8th pick in the first round. And I believe David Stern is ready. Let's go now to the podium and David Stern.
The Cleveland Cavaliers select Ron Harper of Miami of Ohio.
Ron Harper, there are those who say that Ron Harper is the very best selection in terms of an athlete in the draft. The Atlanta Hawks have the 19th pick in the draft, and as everything gets topsy-turvy, they've got to be going crazy down there in Atlanta trying to reorganize their priorities. So, Kevin Christopher, what's happening in Atlanta?
Well, Bob, they are indeed wearing out the carpet here in the War Room at the Omni. Joining me now, one of the NBA's legendary big men, former New York Knicks great, Atlanta Hawks assistant Willis Reed. Willis, first of all, a comment on the 6'7" swingman from Miami of Ohio.
Well, I think Ron Harper's a very good player. I think everyone would love to have a player of his talent. I think he's going to be a good player in our league.
Now, the Chicago Bulls have the next selection. Are they thinking backcourt?
I think they're thinking backcourt, but there's some speculation that they may go big and take a guy like Sellers. So I think we'll have to wait and see. I think we've seen some surprise picks earlier in the draft. Basically, there were people picking, two people, some small people and a big person. And in Indiana, we thought we needed a big guy. They took a small guy. And those kinds of things happen.
Surprises will abound, no doubt, as we go back to New York and Bob Neal.
Okay, so that's the story from Atlanta right now. And just to quickly recap what's happened with the draft, you see on the board right behind us here is a listing of the draft. They're putting it up for everybody to see here in the Felt Forum. So let's recap it very quickly for you. Cleveland had the first pick thanks to the trade, and they took Brad Daugherty. Len Bias went to Boston, Washburn to Golden State, Chuck Person to Indiana, somewhat of a surprise, Kenny Walker to New York, Bedford to Phoenix, Tarpley to Dallas, Harper to Cleveland, and next up will be Chicago. And John Thompson, Chicago coming up. A lot of people thought Johnny Dawkins might be the perfect match to go with Michael Jordan. Might it be Dawkins in Chicago, if you had a view?
If you go by rumors, it'll be Johnny Dawkins, but then again, there's Pearl Washington. I think that they're looking for a guard, a playmaking guard to make the play. Johnny played the shooting guard in college and is very capable of making the transition into the point guard. So I think I would expect him to take Johnny Dawkins, yes.
Okay, let's see. Is David Stern not ready yet? Larry Donald before. We're still waiting for Chicago. They may have a real tough choice to make here. Do you have any feelings about what they might do?
Chicago's had pretty good success in the last 5 years of this draft. In fact, they're the only team that every year they've managed to get a guy who's come in and been able to do some playing for them, started for the most part. I don't know, maybe that suggests their judgment hasn't been too good because the guys they're getting, they're not winning very many games.
And David Stern is ready now. Excuse me for interrupting, but let's go right up to the podium, and Stern will make the selection for Chicago, number 9 in this year's draft.
The Chicago Bulls select Brad Sellers of Ohio State.
Well, we started the day getting surprised with a Philly-Cleveland trade. Then Boston, with the number 2 pick, surprises by taking Len Bias. We thought they might go with the big man Bedford. Let's go back to Paul Wright now, who is in Boston with Red Auerbach and the Boston Celtics.
Okay, Red, the last 2 picks for Chicago have made the all-rookie team, Michael Jordan and Charles Oakley. What do you think? Do you think Sellers is a possibility, an all-rookie type player?
No, I don't think he's going to be that good because I don't think he's going to get all that much playing time. But he is a good basketball player. As a matter of fact, he too was at our rookie camp one year here in Boston, and we liked him very much. He's a super kid. He's going to help that ball club. But I thought they were going to go guard. I was surprised. I thought they might have taken...
Maybe go for a Dawkins or somebody?
Well, either Dawkins or Del Curry.
Okay.
And but I guess the intrigue of the height. See, he's not a center. And unless they figured something that I can't figure, they really don't need forwards. They need a center. And I don't think he's a center.
So a bit of a surprise for Chicago, at least a surprise to Red Auerbach. Let's go back to New York now, where Bob Neal is standing by.
Felt Forum, Madison Square Garden, New York. Time for pick number 10 of the first round. Here's David Stern.
The San Antonio Spurs select Johnny Dawkins of Duke.
Johnny Dawkins of Duke. He's 6'2", 165 pounds. Went to Mackin Catholic. Is that Mackin Catholic in Washington, D.C. And John Thompson, I'm sure you've seen him play. We'll get your comments on him even when he was a younger player. Of course, played his basketball at Duke, was the player of the year last year in the NCAA, and a lot of people, in a lot of people's minds. Johnny Dawkins, a flashy guard, helped his team to a #1 ranking most of the year. Let's meet him.
Well, Johnny, last time I saw you, the Duke Children's class, you had a tennis racket in your hand. You had to ride a horse?
I guess I'll have to learn. It was pretty anxious to see where I was headed, and I think San Antonio was a good up-and-coming ball club, so I'm excited.
Okay, now you've played both point guard and then you moved to the off-guard position with Amaker down there. Which position do you prefer?
Well, I think it's somewhat time for a change in my positioning. I've played the off guard for a number of years, but I think I have the potential to be a point guard and a ball handling guard. So I'm looking forward to the change if at all one is necessary.
What do you think of Alvin Robertson?
He's a great player. I had the opportunity to play with him on the Olympic team, and I think he's a hard worker, tremendous athlete, and I'm looking forward to that, playing with him.
Anything in particular you feel you have to work on to make your game more adaptable for the NBA, or do you think you're ready?
I think there's a couple things I'd like to sharpen up. One is my ball handling. If I'm going to make a change in position, I'd like to be able to handle the ball a little better, and a few other things as far as physical strength I'd like to improve, but as always. So those are things I think I need to work on.
How much did your experience at Duke you think help you to prepare for pro ball?
Well, I think my experience at Duke helped me a great deal. It enabled me to develop and come along slow as a player, and not all of a sudden thrown into a position where I'm going to fail. Coach, a lot of trial and error was on his part in watching me play and develop as a person, as a player. And I think that development is what's going to help me to develop in the NBA as well, hopefully.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching you perform next year for the San Antonio Spurs. Let's go to John Andres now with Pearl Washington.
Okay, Rick, yes, we have Dwayne the Pearl Washington here, one of the top guards in America. Dwayne, what are you thinking about next? Do you think you may go next?
I'll tell you, I'm a little nervous here, but I'm hoping I can go next couple of picks, but you never know.
A lot has been written about you wanting to play for the New Jersey Nets. Is there truth to that?
Well, I'll definitely love to play home, but...
How about if Detroit, you may be part of a Detroit trade. Have you heard about that?
I hope not. I'll tell you that.
Okay, don't get nervous if Detroit picks you and you want to play for the Nets. It still could happen, from what we hear anyway.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, Dwayne and Pearl Washington, now back to Bob Neal.
Larry Donald, you're a Detroiter. Detroit's a team that you might say is a small team. They need a big guy. They say they want it. Allery, Sally is still left. Dreiling, Hoppen. Might they take the big man?
Well, Detroit's this is a very critical time for them because they're frankly a team that's gotten about as good as they can get with the personnel that they have. They've got to find a big guy in the middle. As Pearl suggested, if he's chosen by them, obviously there's a trade because there's not room for Dumars and Isaiah and Pearl. They need a big guy in the middle. They need a banger, someone who can do the dirty work around the glass. So it's a very critical draft for the Detroit Pistons. And if they're going to take a John Sally, he's the kind of guy that teased us. He got better as a sophomore and then as a junior, and we waited for him to bust through the clouds as a senior, and it just really didn't happen.
Let's see what happens. David Stern's at the podium right now.
The Detroit Pistons select John Sally of Georgia Tech.
Well, just as Larry Donald said, John Sally, a player, because of my connections and living in Atlanta, I've seen play many times with Georgia Tech.
John, you have a very interesting philosophy about how a big man should play the game. How about telling us about it?
Well, I thought a big man should be as agile as the guards. Someone running up and down court, passing the ball as well as the guards, rebounding, doing everything, being an all-around player.
How do you feel you'll be able to complement a player like Bill Laimbeer?
Well, I know if Bill gets down low, everybody tells me to shoot jump shots, but if he goes down low, I make sure I get him the ball, keep him happy, distribute it right, rebound with him, and just run the court and be a hard defensive player.
Any area of the game that you want to work on?
Yeah, rebounding. I would like to rebound a whole lot more, and I think being more aggressive on offense.
Well, good luck to you, and right now we're going to go down to Atlanta with Kevin Christopher and Mike Fratello.
All right, Rick, thank you. Michael, you've seen John Sally play over the last 4 years here in Atlanta. Your assessment of his talents and what that selection is going to mean to the Detroit Pistons.
He's a good pick for Detroit. He gives them shot blocking, which will help their team defense overall. He has excellent skill level. He can pass the basketball, so as they run their offense, he'll find the open people for him. And he's young. It gives him a young, big forward to work with.
Now let's look ahead for a second to the number 12 pick, Washington.
Big decision. They have 12 and 21. They need a forward and a guard. Do they take the guard first or the forward first?
Well, we're going to find out, and that voice you hear in the background is Los Angeles Dodger manager Tom Lasorda. Maybe we'll hear from him before this is over. Let's go back to New York and Bob Neal.
Okay, we're going to now be ready for Washington's pick in just a moment. Washington's going to be very interesting because, as you may know, if you joined us late, I'll recap it. Philadelphia made a trade with Washington. Philadelphia sent Moses Malone and Terry Catledge and the 21st pick in this first round to Washington, and that's going to really open up the door for Washington to change what they might really do in this draft. So, Larry Donald, let me get you to speculate here before we go up to the commissioner. What will they do now that they've got Moses Malone and Terry Catledge coming their way?
Well, I think that we will see Washington to Washington. I think that's going to be what's going to happen. He's an exciting player and a guy that puts fans in the stands, and that's what they need.
There you have Daugherty, Bias, Washburn, Person, Walker, Bedford. Those are the first 6 picks. Tarpley, Harper, Sellers, Dawkins, and Sally. So now we're about to go to the number 12 pick in the first round of the 1986 draft for the Washington Bullets. And Moses Malone, Ruland, and as I say, they got their 12th and 21st. And John Thompson, you've got Malone and Ruland, 2 big bangers going in there with Manute Bol. And remember, he was a player last year in that 85 draft that we really didn't know what had happened. And Bol had to surprise you a little bit with how well he played.
He surprised me an awful lot. In fact, he was over at Georgetown just playing, and I came up to him and I said, hey, you made a liar out of me because I really didn't think you would be as good. And when I looked up at him, I was afraid from what I had said last time about him. But I think he did very well. I'd love to see Pearl Washington go with that crew. I think that would be very interesting with Malone and Pearl Washington. Somebody is in trouble if that happens, I think.
Let's see if it happens. Here's David Stern.
The Washington Bullets select John Williams from LSU.
6'9", 237, John Williams. He can run the court. He can handle the ball like a guard in some cases. Might he be an open court player in the NBA?
Oh, yes. He played a lot of guard in high school, and I'm here to testify that he can generate intensity when he wants to, because he did it against Mount Ball Club last year. And I was talking with him last night in the lobby, and he's an enormous kid. I was very surprised when I came up to him because I started kidding with him, and, I weighed 400. And I was bumping on him, and he wasn't moving. Now, I think they have an excellent choice in there. I was surprised. I thought they would take Pearl all, but, you go with size. You can always get the guards a dime a dozen, but it's a good choice.
All right, Rick Barry is matched up one-on-one with John Williams right now. Let's meet him.
Yeah, and thank goodness it's just sitting down, not playing one-on-one. John, a couple years ago, I gave you an award in high school in Los Angeles. Now you're in the NBA. Your coach, Dale Brown, said you can play anywhere on the court. Where do you prefer to play?
Well, I prefer to play with my face to the basket. That way I can hit the open man.
Now you're going to get an opportunity to play with one of the great centers in the league with this big trade with Moses Malone going to Washington.
Well, I think that'll be a great thing for me because I always idolized Moses Malone, and right now I'm just so overjoyed. Right now I don't know what to say.
Okay, now did you give a lot of thought, or how much did you actually give to perhaps staying in school? You were picked now in the second part of the draft in the lower 10. If you had stayed in school, you probably could have been one of the top 3 or 4 picks.
Well, I gave it some serious consideration, and I felt it was best for me to come out, and I felt it was my time right now.
Well, I hope it works out for you. I look forward to seeing you next year in an NBA uniform for the Washington Bullets. And right now we'll go to John Andres with Pete Vesey.
Okay, thank you, Rick Barry. Well, right now the place is rocking because there's a choice for the Nets to be made. Pete, any doubt in your mind who that'll be?
No doubt. They wanted Pearl Washington, and they lucked out with the Bullets making that trade. They had to get a small forward. They got Williams, and now leaves Pearl to the Nets.
All right, Pete, how about the next couple of picks now? Who do you project? Meanwhile, the College Player of the Year, Walter Berry, hasn't been chosen yet.
He hasn't been chosen, but hey, these scouts and these GMs have been wrong before, and I'll tell you, Utah has always wound up with a good pick. They've always, they got Thurl Bailey, they got Karl Malone, they got John Stockton, fell right into their laps. It looks like Berry's going to fall into their laps also, and Del Curry has slipped all the way down, so now it looks like he'll go to Portland, and Utah will take Berry, and then probably Mo Martin to Denver.
A lot of good players left. Mark Allery left too, right?
Right. Allery will probably go to Sacramento, unless Sacramento's trying to move up ahead of Denver to get Mo Martin. If they can swing that off, then Denver would take Allery.
You think Walter Berry's feeling bad right now?
Well, I think he knew it was coming. He knew he was going to be drafted right around 15.
Okay, Pete Vesey, thank you, and now let's go back to Bob Neal.
Well, I can tell you this, while you were listening to that interview with Pete Vesey and John Andres, the fans in the stands who are just 30 feet or so away from us here at the Felt Forum were chanting, "We want Pearl." So, Walter Berry, Pearl Washington, who do you feel would be the best player to be on that squad for New Jersey right now?
Well, I think it goes back to what we talked about the Pearl can do. In addition to his obvious basketball skills, he can sell some tickets. He's a New York kid. Barry is the same thing. But, I don't know, Pearl just seems to be a little bigger legend, and really the Nets need an identity. They probably can't go wrong with either guy, but I just think that Pearl has a little more shtick.
We just stole the pick. You saw the camera there on top of the table, and if you could look kind of cockeyed at our screen, you saw Dwayne Washington being written down. We hate to steal the thunder, but everybody got to see it around the country. So it is going to be Washington. In a moment, it will officially be announced to this crowd. Let's get a real jump on it. How do you feel about Washington going into this?
Excited. He was one of the most difficult players for my team ever to defend. And I think when Pearl gets the basketball in transition, he's as dangerous as anyone I've ever coached against. He can penetrate to the basket. They talked about his outside shooting being questionable, but he always made them when he had to. So, and besides all that, he's a crowd-pleasing player. Just by the sounds that we hear in here, he's an exciting, he's an entertaining type player. I think they have something special with Pearl, particularly if you put the big folks around him.
And he's a well-dressed young man. There is Pearl Washington. There are about 12 or so players here who were invited. David Stern is now going to make the official announcement, and wait till you hear the crowd. Here's Commissioner Stern.
The New Jersey Nets select Dwayne Washington of Syracuse.
Cheers from the crowd. Dwayne Washington went to Boys and Girls High School in Brooklyn.
But I think the most important thing about Pearl Washington and the New Jersey Nets, this is a franchise which really has never had an identity. My friend Bob Ryan from the Boston Globe calls them the Exit 16W Nets. This is a star. This is a guy that they can market. They brought marketing people in, and it's been a tough struggle for him to get people in the stands. This is a guy that can do it. Perhaps the most important player from a standpoint of sales and marketing that the Nets have had since the Doctor.
Yes, John. And also, a player that John Thompson is glad to see go. And I was standing up and cheering also, we want Pearl for the Nets when he was making the decision.
This reminds me of last year when you were saying from Villanova, goodbye Eddie Pinckney.
I'd love to see him going. Dear Walter, I think, is on this list somewhere too, isn't he?
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Walter.
Let's go to Rick Barry now and meet the Pearl, Washington.
And the Pearl got a kick, John, out of your saying you're happy to see him go. Well, you got your wish. You're going to be in New Jersey. You know, a lot of your critics have said that you're too flashy a player. What do you think about that?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm just looking forward to getting in the NBA and doing a good job.
Well, when you get on the break and you get the ball, what do you look for?
Well, first pass, and if not, go all the way to the basket. I'll stop and shoot a little short jump shot. But it's been an honor to play. It's going to be an honor to play at New Jersey, and I'm very happy with the choice, and I'm looking forward to playing down there.
We're live at the Felt Forum at Madison Square Garden in New York. Portland Trail Blazers ready to pick 14th in the first round. Let's go to Commissioner David Stern.
The Portland Trail Blazers select Walter Berry of St. John's.
New York, Walter Berry, of course, the New Yorkers would like to have seen him here. He's going about as far away as you can get in the NBA in Portland. How does he fit in there? Sam Bowie, Kiki Vanderway, Michael Thompson, etc. What do you feel about it?
I agree with John. I think that he, again, a little bit like Kenny Walker, a victim of the pro scouts bureaucracy, if you will. You've got to do this, you got to do that, you got to be this tall. I like the way he plays, the heart that he shows. I like when it's crunch time he wants the ball. He does a lot of things. I think he'll be a lot better pro player than people realize. I think he's been very underrated, and a few years from now we'll be sitting here and saying, how did Walter Berry last till the number 15 pick? So I think he can do a lot of things. I think he has a lot of adjustments to make, but he's got the big Valentine, and that's very, very important.
We're going to, speaking big Valentine, my favorite Valentine as an executive in the NBA has to be Red Auerbach. He's standing by in Boston. Let's get his view on the draft up to this point with Paul Ryden.
Okay, Bob, a bright future may await Walter Berry in Portland in the NBA, but Red Auerbach, you think he ought to stay in school?
Well, I think he should have stayed in school. As a matter of fact, we were talking a few moments ago about Bias. I had dinner with Bias and his folks last year, and I thought he should stay in school and work on his game, and he'd be a sure lottery pick, which is what happened. If Berry stayed in school, he'd be one of the first 3 or 4 the following year. He would have been better off.
Kind of surprising, a player of the year goes 15th.
That's right. It's very unusual.
Okay, let's go back to New York now. Bob Neal.
Thank you, Paul, to Red Auerbach. The next pick will be the 15th, actually. It'll be Utah. And Utah, last year, helped themselves a little bit in the guard position. A lot of people think now that they may go to the front court. What do you think?
Well, I think the best player that's still available at this point would probably be Del Curry, at least the most heralded player, and that doesn't always necessarily translate into being the best NBA player. I would suspect that he might be the kind of guy that could help them, particularly in light of some of the other things they're trying to do with Adrian Dantley and the question mark about Darryl Griffith. Can he come back, and so on and so forth. I would guess him.
As you can see, Utah still trying to decide. Let me ask both of you gentlemen this for a quick comment. What about these early eligibility guys? It changes total programs for them to go out. First of all, Larry, what does that do to college basketball? It takes some teams that were big teams, makes some smaller teams.
Well, I think that with the 5 fellas that have been drafted right now, you could say that their programs have gone from, their colleges have gone from teams which could legitimately be preseason number 1s next year to teams which probably now won't be favored to win their conference. It's a very tough call. You can say, well, he should have stayed and played for Old Siwash for the glory and all of that. But the truth is, when that large American cash is placed in front of you, it's the American way to take it and get on and market your talents as best you can.
John, is it okay for the kid? What do you tell him? An early eligibility potential player?
Well, I think, first of all, coming out of school early doesn't indicate the fact that your education has to stop, because a lot of people who aren't playing in basketball moonlight and go to school. I think where the emotional adjustment is where the problem is. I think that was one of the primary concerns of most of the kids who came out of school early as it related to the pro scout. Is this guy mature enough to adjust to the things that he's got to adjust?
Way of life.
And I agree with Larry. You can't, it's very easy for me to advise you not to take $1 million, but I would take it. Yeah. I don't think everybody's going to get $1 million, particularly this year. I think it's going to be very difficult for a lot of these people to get the kind of money that they may think that they're going to get. But it's very difficult to tell anybody to stay in school. I told Patrick that he should leave, and he decided to stay. I was hoping that he would stay because selfishly I wanted him to be there and to play for John Thompson. But that's a very hard call. The individual has to make that one about it.
Okay, and now David Stern is ready to announce the pick from Utah.
The Utah Jazz select Del Curry of Virginia Tech.
Selected 6'5", 195, and Del Curry is 22 years old this June. An outstanding player. Memphis State coach Dana Kirk said, how do you stop Del Curry? That's what his players wanted to know, because his players said, we don't know how to defend him because he can shoot from so far out. That's what they say about Larry Bird. We'll be back in just a moment. Here's the first round selections. Thanks to the trade with Philadelphia, Brad Daugherty went to Cleveland. Cleveland also had their pick that they had previously, number 8, and they took Ron Harper there. Number 2, Len Bias went to Boston, Washburn to Golden State, Person to Indiana, Walker to New York, Bedford to Phoenix, Tarpley to Dallas. The other picks in the first round. As we go to pick number 9, it was Brad Sellers going to Chicago, Johnny Dawkins to San Antonio, Sally to Detroit, Williams to Washington. The Pearl went to New Jersey, which pleased this Felt Forum crowd greatly. Walter Berry out to Portland, and Del Curry moments ago was selected by Utah. Next up will be Denver. They had a pick that they made from Dallas. Now, Denver is pretty happy with their up-front people. They've got some pretty strong players there. They said that they may go for a perimeter player, and let's see. Here's David Stern.
The Denver Nuggets select Maurice Mo Martin from St. Joseph's of Pennsylvania.
Mo Martin is certainly a good perimeter player. He's that swing-sized player. Some guys say the size that can get a coach fired if you don't use him right.
Danny, you're in town checking out the action, adding some help here. What do you think Mo Martin will do to your team?
Yeah, I think he'll give us the dimension we really need, and that's some good scoring from the 2-spot in the backcourt. Fat Lever did a great job at point guard. T.R. Dunn, terrific player, great defensive player, all-league defensive player. But I think this pick will give us that little boost in scoring from the second guard that we've really needed.
Danny, you have another pick now coming up after the next one for Denver. Do you think they'll go big now to the forward position?
I'm sure that's what they'll be looking at. Big forward, getting a rebounder inside, good defensive player. Just something to help beef up our front line.
Okay, Danny Shea's here visiting, and now we're going to go down to Kevin Christopher in Atlanta.
All right, John, thank you very much. Now, I'd show you the fingernails of Hawks president and GM Stan Kasten, except right now he doesn't have any. Just a couple of picks to go before the Hawks pick in the 19th slot. There's a jam-packed crowd outside here in the Omni awaiting that decision, as well as a room full of sports notables here like Villanova head coach Raleigh Massimino, Dick Versace from Bradley. As I said, the whole Hawks staff is here. Dominique Wilkins of the Hawks. They're all waiting and hoping for the guy that they want. Possibility of a major deal in the works. We will keep you posted. If and when that happens, we'll let you know right away. Now let's go back to the Felt Forum and Bob Neal.
Thank you very much, Kevin Christopher. I want to ask Larry Donald something here. We're down through 16 picks now. We'll be ready for Sacramento in just a moment. And I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball. We're talking first-round picks here, and I think when we're at draft day, we think these guys are going to come in and be impact players. Even in the first round, that isn't necessarily so, is it?
Well, statistically, what has happened so far in this decade with the draft, 1 in 3 players that's drafted in the first round eventually makes it as a starting player, and in a few of those cases they don't make it as a starting player but the team that they were drafted. So what today is a great marketing day for the NBA. It's a great day for all of basketball because it's the one day when the college people are interested and the NBA people are all interested in the same thing. But if you get down to the raw, tough statistics of it, only about a third of the team that draft today are actually going to have a guy who's going to make a great impact.
John, you had a list here, I don't know if it's handy, of a couple of last year's, the 1985 draft choices. Listen to this, it's some interesting stats. Only 5 or 6 really had big impacts.
Well, only 6 guys out of last year's first-round picks averaged in double figures, and I don't think that stat is indicative of it, but I agree wholeheartedly with Larry. I think this is the public relations man's dream, but I think you will find out that the seasoned veteran will be the most consistent contributor, and that's how strong teams are built, and that's why the Celtics are as good as they are, because they've never gotten rid of the chemistry. They've gone along with experience. And I think that these kids will contribute, but I don't think that they're going to have the kind of impact that you might be getting the reaction from the fans around us at this point. The seasoned pro will be the one that will carry the franchise.
Now, Sacramento, we just heard from Atlanta, Kevin Christopher and Mike Fratello, but the seasoned people who are watching this draft, the Atlanta Hawks are going to pick 19th, said that they wanted a big wing guard, and they really liked Anthony Jones out of UNLV. But Sacramento Kings have also expressed interest interest there. And Anthony Jones is one of these long-range bombers. He might be the next guy.
He is a great shooter, Bob. He can do a lot of things, and Coach Thompson's eminently familiar with him. He started his career at Georgetown, then went on to Nevada, Las Vegas, and was an outstanding player for the Rebels this year.
And I understand, excuse me for interrupting, I understand David Stern is ready now with the Sacramento choice. Let's see who they take.
The Sacramento Kings select Harold Presley from Villanova.
Well, just as we predicted, that's one of the first ones we've missed here when we got real close to it. Anthony Jones will apparently be available to the Atlanta Hawks at 19 now. We'll wait and see, but Harold Presley will go. Denver is set to pick 18th. Now let's go to Commissioner David Stern.
The Denver Nuggets select Mark Allery of Duke. The next pick belongs to Atlanta.
Just to recap very quickly, at the beginning of the program, there were big trades. Cleveland and Philly made a trade. Roy Hinson went from Cleveland to Philadelphia, and Cleveland ended up with Philadelphia's #1 pick on the entire draft and selected Brad Daugherty. Then the 76ers traded Moses Malone, Catledge, and their 21st pick to the Bullets for Jeff Rulin, Cliff Robinson, and the Bullets' first-round pick in 1988. And when Washington came up with that #12 pick, they took John Williams out of LSU. So the Atlanta Hawks are up next in the draft. It will be the 19th pick. This is live coverage here on TBS Sports of the 1986 NBA Draft. We're at the Felt Forum in Madison Square Garden in New York City. We have a crowd of about 3,000 here joining us and our colleagues and the Commissioner of the League, David Stern. And here's the announcement.
The Atlanta Hawks select Billy Thompson of Louisville.
Well, there you go. At this point in the draft, we're going to get some curveballs. Now, Billy Thompson has been selected by the Hawks. They had said in the Atlanta papers that they would take Anthony Jones if he were available. However, Coach John Thompson, you were in Chicago for the pre-draft trials, and you were impressed with Billy Thompson out of Louisville.
Played extremely well. He played extremely well. I think Billy played in Chicago the way everybody expected him to play in college, and he played well enough in college to win the national championship, so that's really playing. I thought he had a great session in Chicago. He was rebounding, he's moving, he's flexible, he's rangy. He has the kind of body that Julius Erving has, a rangy, long arm type player.
Let's find out just how the Hawks feel about Billy Thompson and how he'll fit into their plans. Let's go live to Atlanta.
All right, the Hawks selection of Billy Thompson kind of got some mixed reviews from a lot of people in the building. Here, Mike Vitello, explain that selection to us, if you would.
I think the people here felt that, we definitely would go for strictly a guard, a player who was labeled as a shooting guard. And, we like versatility in our athletes. We have people on this team that can play more than one position, and Billy Thompson has that ability to play a small forward or a big guard. He's a very skilled player, can pass, can score, can rebound. And, like Yogi said, it's never over till it's over.
All right, now let's look ahead briefly, if we can, to the second round. You've got 3 picks there. How much talent is going to be there, and what kind of chance, realistically, do the players taken in that second round going to have of cracking an NBA lineup?
Well, that's exactly my point, what I was trying to say. We do have 3 second-round picks, and who knows, what it does is it gives us great depth now up front, and it gives us versatility. We may be able to do something now by packaging some picks together with players that we have and maybe come up with a better overall roster.
All right, Michael, thank you. So the situation here in Atlanta can best be described as fluid. Let's go back to New York.
Okay, Houston will pick next. Will they get a guard, a point guard, or will they get another center, and we'll call them the Triple Towers? You're looking at the Felt Forum, Madison Square Garden, New York. We're ready now for the #20 pick in the 1986 draft. The Houston Rockets, the runners-up to Boston Celtics, and here's the Commissioner, David Stern.
The Houston Rockets select Buck Johnson of Alabama.
It'll be interesting to see what Houston did. We said they might surprise us, and certainly they did, as they select out of Alabama Buck Johnson. Most people thought that Buck Johnson would go somewhere in the middle to the late stages of the first round of the NBA draft. He is a valuable player who can help somebody, and I'm sure that's what Houston's thinking about now. There are still some good guards left, particularly at the point guard position. There are guards like Steve Mitchell, Mark Price, Scott Skiles, Anthony Jones out of UNLV. Coming up next in the draft will be Washington. But right now, let's have a look at Boston and the opinion of Red Auerbach. Of course, Red just got to see all he wanted out of the Houston Rockets, and so let's see what Red thought about this draft choice from Houston.
Okay, well, let's find out. Red, you got a good look at the Houston Rockets the last couple of weeks.
Sure.
Okay, they obviously needed a point guard, and they went with Buck Johnson. What do you think?
Well, I think Bill Fitz is trying to get to be the biggest team in the history of basketball. I can't figure that one out because they seem to be pretty solid in that position where this guy would play, but he knows what he's doing, and he must have a reason. Maybe he's got a deal cooking for a player to get a guard.
Well, we'll see. Okay, thanks, Red. That's the opinion of Red Auerbach in Boston. Let's go back now to Bob Neal in New York.
Red is always ever quotable. Bill Fitch looking to get the biggest team in the history of basketball. It's kind of a triple tower situation for him. We have coming up next Washington. Washington involved in that trade with Philadelphia earlier, got the 12th pick, and now they have Philadelphia's 21st pick. So Washington could certainly strengthen themselves, Coach Thompson. They get Moses Malone and Terry Catledge, and now they have an opportunity for their second selection in this draft.
I like the way they've improved themselves. I think that you have to sort of be concerned about chemistry with a lot of new players, but certainly they have a lot of good talent coming in, and I think that I would speculate that they may go somewhere in the backcourt now, to try to get a player. But again, you're talking about somebody who doesn't know what he's talking about, and I think they've done well with all of this trading. You hear about this trading every year. Usually they trade cards. This year they traded real solid basketball players. It's going to be interesting.
Speaking of that backcourt, you said you were at that camp in Chicago, the pre-draft camp. How about these backcourt players? Steve Mitchell, Mark Price, Scott Skiles. Any of them that stood out that are available now that might go there? Anthony Jones, whom you knew, of course, previously.
I think at this point of the draft, and even way into the second round, you're talking about a lot of people with very similar abilities. This draft was a very, very similar situation after you get by the first few players. It's probably one of the deepest drafts that they've ever had, and then I think from this point you could get a lot of people. Usually you see the guards on the 11 o'clock news who drafted them. The big fellas are the ones that you want to get because it's hard to get them. But I think a lot of people played well. I like my own player, Michael Jackson. I'm surprised at this point, and I think Michael's good. I like David Wingate, my own player, but
both
I'm
of them
biased.
are said to be maybe late first rounds or early second rounds. As you're taking a look here at a recap of what's happened in the draft so far, down through round 16 as Maurice Martin went to Denver. We're about ready for round 21. After 16, the 17th player went to Sacramento. That was Harold Presley. Then Mark Allery to Denver. Billy Thompson to Atlanta. Somewhat of a surprise from the Hawks, as a lot of people thought they would take Anthony Jones, the wing guard from UNLV. Then Buck Johnson went to Houston. So now up comes Washington. And Larry Donnell, what do you think about the Washington team and what they might do here?
Well, I don't want to sound like a one-man band here, but I'm very surprised that Scott Skiles has not been drafted. This is an outstanding player, as Coach Thompson well knows. I happen to have the opportunity to see Skiles light up Georgetown pretty good this year, and they did one of the better defensive jobs on him. He plays with incredible intensity. Obviously, his background is hurting him, but this is a guy who's going to come into this league and play because they can talk about him being too slow and too this and too that. Boy, he can just really play, and if you doubt that, ask Roy Tarpley.
Let me ask you a pointed question here. As I mentioned before, the Basketball Times, of which you're the editor and publisher, is in Detroit. What is your personal straight opinion? This has to be a quick answer because we're going to David Stern. Is Scott Skiles okay? Will he make it in the NBA? Do you think he's a straightened out guy?
Well, I would say if he hasn't learned his lesson by now with all the things he's gone through, there's no hope. I would say yes, he can do it.
Let's see what happens now. Here's David Stern.
The Washington Bullets select Anthony Jones of UNLV.
1986-87 season, off to a good start, but quickly a recap of your opinion of the past season.
Well, the past season we saw typically great NBA basketball with our players continuing to validate the claim that they are the world's greatest athletes, and I think that the fans of America have really caught on.
Anything in particular that's going to be coming up in the next season?
We're just going to do more of the same, except that this draft, you always hear the words deep, deep, but I think this draft points out how great college basketball is in this country and how many great players are going to come into our league every year, and we're as excited as can be, so next year should be even better.
Milwaukee Bucks Central Division champions. Let's see who they'll draft to complement Sidney Moncrief, Terry Cummings, and Paul Pressey. Here's David Stern.
The Milwaukee Bucks select Scott Skiles of Michigan State.
Well, can go by is I have a lot of faith in Skiles coach, Judd Heathcote. And Judd Heathcote made a very courageous call because I think that the popular thing to have done would have been to set Skiles down for the year. Skiles was willing to set out for the year, whatever it took. But Judd said no, and he showed a lot of faith in Scott Skiles' character, and I have a lot of faith in Judd Heathcote's decision. So I think his past, certainly it's a factor, but he'll be great in Milwaukee. He'll make them very excited, and I think that all the tangible things that scouts look at, he doesn't measure up that high. But all of a sudden, when the game's over and you're looking at the score sheet and you're kind of scratching your head and saying, how did he do that? He can really play. I'm a big fan of his.
Let's see what Peter Vesey thinks about it. He's with John Andreas right now.
Okay, Bob, a big surprise with Don Nelson. Coach of the Year, always wins his division. What do you think of this one with Scott Skiles?
I think, John, that he must have something up his sleeve. He must be looking to make a trade. There's been a lot of talk about trading for Sikmer. I think if he's got to give up a guard, maybe a Pressey or a Pierce or somebody like that, plus a Lister for Sikmer, I think he's got another guard in his backcourt.
Don Nelson wants that big man in the middle. Now, a lot of other big names, Pete, are being thrown around as possible trades we might be reading about in the next couple of days. Who would some of those people be?
I think with Indiana taking Person, I think that shows that they're definitely moving one of their forwards, maybe even two of them, maybe a multiplayer deal. I've heard the Warriors have offered Smith, Mullen, and Purvis Short for Stepanovic and Kellogg. You might see a smaller version of that. Or maybe even Joe Barry Carroll doing something big for him. And I think Dantley, the Nets are looking for Dantley. I think you're going to see him moved in the next couple of weeks.
Live coverage of the NBA draft, first round from the Felt Forum at Madison Square Garden. And there's a man whose voice and face familiar to many television viewers around the country, the voice of the Lakers, Chick Hearn, who also works for the Lakers. He's here as their representative, and it's the Lakers' turn. It's the 23rd pick of the first round. Here's Commissioner David Stern.
The Los Angeles Lakers select Ken Barlow of Notre Dame.
A lot of the names that I thought might have been picked a little bit earlier haven't been. However, I do think that what's going to happen in this draft, even though there's not a lot of players who are going to make a dramatic impact on their team and turn them into instant winners, I think that the overall depth of the teams in the NBA next year is probably going to be the best that it ever has been because of the tremendous young talent that is coming out in this 1986 draft.
Oh, Rick, that's an interesting thought. You were mentioning earlier, though, some of these players, about a third since 1980, 1 out of 3 players make an actual starting impact. And as you said, starters. And the depth, of course, is the team, like a Boston or like any of the teams that are deep that have 8, 9, 10 players that can contribute. That's where they may come into play.
Well, there's no question. That's their role. And let's not also point out that one of the advantages some of these young guys have coming in is that they'll come at a little less expensive price than some veteran player. And if you can get about the same thing out of an incoming player as you do a veteran, then you go with the young guy.
You know, John Thompson, we look into the colleges. A lot of people think that next year's crop may have more talent up at the top. David Robinson of Navy, of course, has a naval commitment, but there are some younger players who will be playing on the World Championship basketball team, which will be part of our telecast of the Goodwill Games, and some players will be playing in the Olympics who are coming along. Are the colleges about to come up with another bumper crop like last year with some real stars, do you think?
Well, it's very hard to tell. I think that this year's hardship definitely has an effect on games like the Olympic Games and all the international events. And as a possible Olympic coach, I think I have a concern about that, particularly kids leaving school. And that's a selfish concern, and certainly the kid has to make a decision in his interest. But I think that there will always be kids who will take the space of those people who left, though. I think that there are a lot of kids who are just looking for an opportunity, and they will have good players coming out. Size is the major factor, I think, that's coming up, Bob. That you don't have a lot of big people on the horizon. You have a lot of good basketball players, but you don't have a lot of big people, particularly after David Robinson, who are quality players, and that has to be a concern of anybody who's drafting this year, anybody who's making that kind of decision. Just as in college, if you're recruiting this year, you project in terms of what you might be able to get next year. And certainly these people in the NBA have probably looked to say, well, hey, if I can't get a center or a power forward now, what will I be able to get next year? The only avenue I'll have is trading. So that's why I think you'll see a lot of trading and a lot of movement.
Well, the Portland Trailblazers are set to pick next. Portland will pick 24th and last in this first round. And before we go up to Commissioner David Stern, who's not at the podium yet, let me ask you, Larry Donald, about Portland. They've had coaching changes. They've had a team in transition in some way. Earlier today, they selected Walter Berry. What do you think about Portland and what they may be looking for here in this 24th pick?
You've given me the toughest call of the day. I think they might be looking for a backup center. There's a fellow sitting just to our right over here, Greg Dreiling, who might be of some interest to them, a fellow who could play in behind Sam Bowie. So I would guess that will be their choice.
All right, let's see. Here's Commissioner David Stern.
For the last pick of the first round of the NBA draft, America's game, the Portland Trailblazers select Arvydas Sabonis of the Soviet Union.
Well, that's the end of the first round with Arvydas Sabonis, the player from the Soviet Union, who will be, by the way, playing in the World Championships for the Soviet Union on the Goodwill Games here on the Superstation in July, has been selected last year by the Atlanta Hawks, this year by Portland, maybe a trade or something of that nature in the works. We frankly don't know. A very big surprise. As John Thompson said, he'll be glad he won't, if he goes somewhere, he won't be playing for the Soviets in the Olympics in 1988, as John will be coaching the United States team. The first round in the first pick in the second round was Mark Price of Georgia Tech, who went to Dallas. As we wrap up our coverage here live from the Felt Forum, John Thompson, your overview of what happened today in this 1986 draft.
Well, I think there was a lot of surprises involved in the whole thing, and I think that's indicative of the closeness of the talent. I think in the past you've had exceptional great players at the beginning, particularly the year before last. I think it was 84, 85 when Barkley and that crew. And last year you had an exceptional player in Patrick and certainly some other good players. This year there are a lot of very good players, but most of them are very similar. So that's why I think that there were a lot of surprises, because so many of the people's abilities are very similar. The key thing as far as the player is concerned, though, Bob, is being with the right team, not where you're drafted. I think it's very important for young players to realize that I've got to be at a team where I can get an opportunity to play, and I think that that's going to happen with a lot of people in the second and third round.
Thanks, John. And Larry, it's been great having you with us. Larry Donald, of course, who is the editor and publisher of Basketball Times and president of the Basketball Writers Association. Larry, your overview of what happened today.
Well, as I look at it, I think that the three franchises, Cleveland, Phoenix, and Washington, really helped themselves. I think Cleveland got two solid basketball players. They were low-risk type investments. Phoenix got a real steal in William Bedford. Washington, I think, made an excellent trade and did very well in the draft. And I think New Jersey really helped itself significantly, because at long last, they finally have a cover boy for their season ticket brochure.
Now let's see about the feelings of the rest of our colleagues who worked on our live coverage of the NBA draft today, and that's our colleague Rick Barry. Rick?
Well, in the NBA, I've always said, expect the unexpected. I think this draft supports that to the nth degree. Also, Bob, I will tell you, it's fun to meet these young men in person. They're great athletes. I'm looking forward to watching them perform next year. And I'm going to check Arvydas Sabonis out when I'm over in the Soviet Union and see what the story really is. Let's go to John Andres.
Okay, Rick Barry, I congratulate Bob Ferry, the general manager of the Washington Bullets. He did a lot of courageous things today. He shook up the franchise, and I think he's going to give the fans in Washington a lot to think about and a lot of reason to come to the Capitol Center. Also, Harold Katz in Philadelphia made some big moves. I get the feeling they did not involve their coach, Matt Kukas. It seems to be a management kind of thing going on down there. However, it's very interesting. All in all, congratulations to a lot of courageous general managers. They did a lot of big things today. Now we're going to go up to Paul Ryden up in Boston.
Okay, thank you, John. In Boston, it was a 4-cigar draft for Red Auerbach, and it was a draft that everybody said was going to be a very deep draft, one that a lot of teams could help themselves in. Who helped themselves the most, do you think?
I thought Cleveland did a very good job. If it works out that Brad Daugherty can really take the place of a Hinson, I think they did very well, because Harper's a fine basketball player. But the thing that I'd like to talk about is that Sabonis.
Biggest surprise, I guess.
No, it's no surprise. We were talking about it. In fact, we were trying to negotiate a deal where we're interested in him. Because this guy right now is one of the top 3 or 4 centers in the world. He's 7'2". He can do it all. We knew all about him. And I don't know how they're going to get him, but, hey, they figured the 24th pick wouldn't help their ball club anyway.
Okay, and you've got a long day today. You don't pick again until 93rd. I don't suppose there's any truth in the room that you're picking Bob Neal next, are you?
No, okay. If he didn't have that tie, I might have taken him.
Okay, let's go back to Kevin Christopher now in Atlanta to wrap it up. Kevin?
All right, Paul, thanks a lot. Amidst all the uncertainty, one thing is certain. Plenty of exciting NBA basketball coming your way next season. A lot of it you'll be able to see right here on the Superstation. Again, quickly, the Atlanta Hawks with the 19th selection in the first round drafted Louisville's Billy Thompson. They have 3 second-round picks, beginning with the 32nd overall, number 8. And as Coach Mike Fratello told you, quoting Yogi Berra, remember, it ain't over till it's over. So a word to the wise, don't make any plane reservations unless, of course, you're Larry Donald. He'll be joining me tonight in Atlanta at 11:20 Eastern Time to wrap up the 1986 NBA Draft. Let's go back to New York and Bob Neal.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin Christopher in Atlanta. We just had 2 other picks here in the second round that I'll give to you very quickly. Greg Dreiling went to Indiana, the big center, and Dennis Rodman, the youngster from Southeast Oklahoma State, went to Detroit as the 27th pick in the 1986 draft.
Okay, Rick Barry, I congratulate Bob Ferry, the general manager of the Washington Bullets. He did a lot of courageous things today. He shook up the franchise, and I think he's going to give the fans in Washington a lot to think about and a lot of reason to come to the Capitol Center. Also, Harold Katz in Philadelphia made some big moves. I get the feeling they did not involve their coach, Matt Kukas. It seems to be a management kind of thing going on down there. However, it's very interesting. All in all, congratulations to a lot of courageous general managers. They did a lot of big things today. Now we're going to go up to Paul Ryden up in Boston.
Okay, thank you, John. In Boston, it was a 4-cigar draft for Red Auerbach, and it was a draft that everybody said was going to be a very deep draft, one that a lot of teams could help themselves in. Who helped themselves the most, do you think?
I thought Cleveland did a very good job. If it works out that Brad Daugherty can really take the place of a Hinson, I think they did very well because Harper's a fine basketball player. But the thing that I'd like to talk about is that Sabonis.
Biggest surprise, I guess.
No, it's no surprise. We were talking about it. In fact, we were trying to negotiate a deal where we're interested in him. Because this guy right now is one of the top 3 or 4 centers in the world. He's 7'2", he can do it all. We knew all about him. And I don't know how they're going to get him, but hey, they figured the 24th pick wouldn't help their ball club anyway.
Okay, and you've got a long day today. You don't pick again until 93rd. I don't suppose there's any truth in the room you're picking Bob Neal next, are you?
No, okay. If he didn't have that tie, I might have taken him.
Okay, let's go back to Kevin Christopher now in Atlanta to wrap it up. Kevin?
All right, Paul, thanks a lot. Amidst all the uncertainty, one thing is certain. Plenty of exciting NBA basketball coming your way next season. A lot of it you'll be able to see right here on the Superstation. Again, quickly, the Atlanta Hawks with the 19th selection in the first round drafted Louisville's Billy Thompson. They have 3 second-round picks, beginning with the 32nd overall, number 8. And as Coach Mike Fratello told you, quoting Yogi Berra, remember, it ain't over till it's over. So a word to the wise, don't make any plane reservations unless, of course, you're Larry Donald. He'll be joining me tonight in Atlanta at 11:20 Eastern Time to wrap up the 1986 NBA Draft. Let's go back to New York and Bob Neal.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin Christopher in Atlanta. We just had 2 other picks here in the second round that I'll give to you very quickly. Greg Dreiling went to Indiana, the big center, and Dennis Rodman, the youngster from Southeast Oklahoma State, went to Detroit as the 27th pick in the 1986 draft.